Now, markets are down and economic anxiety, as a result, is way up. U.S. markets plunged yesterday, with the Dow alone falling more than 1,000 points, marking Wall Street's worst day of 2022. Now, it came after a day of big gains, thanks to the Federal Reserve announcing that it had planned to raise interest rates in an attempt to tackle inflation. Joining us now are CNN anchor and correspondent and business editor at large, Richard Quest, and former Wall Street executive Alexis Glick. Thank you so much to you both for joining us this morning. Richard, let me start with you. Can you explain this massive swing, really high after the announcement on Wednesday, and then it just plummeted? It crashed yesterday.
Yes, it shows that the market is in deep dysfunction. Therapy. I mean, the market is... Look, the rise was an aberration. It was caused by some weirdness about what Chairman Powell said or didn't say, might have said, thought they said. The reality is what happened yesterday, because what the market did yesterday was take back the gains and continue the fall that had already been started. So I wouldn't worry about what you saw with the gains. I would be far more concerned about the fall and the continuing unease, this dysfunction and volatility that the market has.
What did you think watching this, Alexis? And are you worried that we could see a long-term trend here?
Well, what we saw yesterday, frankly, is a reality check. There are so many headwinds in the marketplace. It's not just what the Federal Reserve has to do to tampen inflation. We have an exceptionally tight labor market. We have 11.5 million open jobs right now. You talk to any CEO, I was on the phone with 6 of them last night. It is an exceptionally difficult marketplace to find talent. And right now, if you have cash on your balance sheet, you can recruit people over from one place to another. So you have a combination of rising prices, a tight labor market. You have the situation with energy prices because of what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. And now you have real concern over scares around COVID in China. All of these things are adding up. And what they're suggesting is we're going to have turbulent waters moving forward.
And what the market is doing is exactly what policymakers want it to do. I mean, they won't admit it in words of one syllable, but they want to see a lower market. They want to see slightly higher unemployment, or at least looser employment, because that gives them the slowdown that they're seeking without, hopefully, recession.
Well, and also the big thing, guys, that we are in the middle of right now is earnings season. Yeah. And what we saw yesterday were more of the tea leaves around earnings. The issue is, as inflation and prices are rising, can you pass on those prices to the consumer? Now, most folks are trying to do that if they can. The issue is right now is how quickly and how aggressively. And the uncertainty of the supply chain and the labor shortage is adding a lot of uncertainty in the business room. But let me just say one thing. The two of us were talking about this before. I was traveling through Europe and through the US just last week. Airports are jam-packed. The consumer has been doing very, very well. And consumer spending has been very strong. The question will be, we have CPI, the Consumer Price Index, next week. We have employment later this morning. How does the consumer adjust in the next 6 months to a year? And that will be the big question mark.
I think there's very little way for our viewers to see those numbers, see those graphs, and hear what you're saying and not ask themselves, how does this affect me? So, Richard, this interest rate hike, this volatility, how is it going to affect average Americans?
Oh, well, let's go through it. Your mortgage, your car loan, your credit card, they'll all be going up in some shape, form, or description. Then you've got the inflation that was already before Ukraine and now on 8.5%, 9% inflation. And of course, real inflation in many industries is much higher. So you've got less money, you're spending more on your loans, you're spending more on the weekly shopping list, you're spending more in every aspect of your life, and your wages may be going up marginally because we are getting some improvement on that. So the short and long of it is you're going to feel poorer. They call it the wealth effect. You're going to feel poorer. And this morning, there are many people, ourselves included, around this table and you, who are looking at 401ks and thinking, I'm not going to do that extension or that conversion, or I'm not going to go on that particular holiday.
At the end of the day, with rising inflation, right, you know, your buying power diminishes, right? And the idea here, everyone should think, the best way to think about this is we've put so much money into the marketplace. The Federal Reserve has $9 trillion on their balance sheet. What does that mean? We've had access to easy money for years. That is going away. That's the reality check. So for the consumer, your buying power has diminished. Most consumers have already seen that, whether you're going to the supermarket or to pump your gas. And that will continue to get worse unless wage inflation maintains at the same level. But that's the issue right now for the Fed, is a very tight labor market and rising prices. So if you're a consumer right now, be very judicious, be very careful, because it's going to get worse over the next 6 months.
The rock and a hard place.
That is exactly right.
That's what we're calling you guys from now on.